Hi, I'm Eric Mailman. I'm going to show you two different ways of navigating lists in Python using the for keyword, F-O-R. So here's a fresh program in PyCharm. I'm going to start with a good practice of putting a header at the top of the program. In that header, I'll identify the class and the section, say what I'm going to do, put my name and a date, a version number would also be good information. Now, as we've done before, it's good practice to put our code into a main function. So I'll define one. And I'm going to create a list. And one of the simpler lists to create is just a list of grades, because then we can do some analysis of them. This is the first method that I'm going to use. And what I'm going to use, as I said before, is the keyword for. And now the name of the variable, and any name is as good as any other name. You want to avoid Python keywords when you're naming your variables, and it would also help to make them meaningful. So since we have a list of grades, we're going to treat each grade individually by saying for grade in grades. And since this is a looping structure, it's going to end in a colon. And that means that the next line needs to be indented to form the block. And in that block, there's only one thing we're going to do. We're going to print the value of the variable grade, which will mean to print each grade in the list grades. Okay. Since we wrote our code into a function, we have to remember at the end to run that function, or else nothing will happen. And now we want to take a look, and we want to find out what PyCharm is complaining about. It looks like it has a complaint here, so if I come back here, it says it expected 2 lines over here. And here it expected 2 lines also. And here it expected 1 blank line. So now that I've cleared that up, the program should be ready to run. So since I'm running this program for the first time, I'm going to right-click over here and say run. After the first time, it becomes easier. And if we take a look down here, what is printed out is all the grades in the list one at a time. So that's the first method. And that's actually the preferred method if that's all you're going to do. Let's say for some reason you needed to know what position in the list things were, or you needed to navigate through the list in some other order from beginning to end. Note down here that the first item printed is the first item in the list, and it goes through the list in order. So if we need to know where things are in the list, then we can use the for statement, but we have to use it a little differently. And again, this is a variable. I is not a bad variable name to choose here because it could stand for the word index. And now we need a range statement. And the range statement generates a set of integers. And if you just give it a single integer, then it will start at the integer 0 and end the loop at 1 less than that integer. We'll see why that comes in handy in a moment. So let's just say we're going to put in 5 because there are 5 items on the list. And now inside the list, we've got some more information which we can print. So let's print the value of I, and then a colon, and then the value of grades sub I, which means the index in the list of the value I. And here we'll see what the values of I actually will be when we run the program. So let's give it a spin and let's see what we've got down here. So this is the second time through. We see the values 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. It ended at 4 because that's 1 less than 5. But it also started at 0. Now, normally people don't want to see values starting from 0. Programs do, computers do. So this started from 0 as it was told to. We can improve that for human beings by adding 1 to it. And we can also note that 5 over here was the number that I got by counting the number of elements in the list. Well, we can do better than that. We can ask Python to count the numbers of elements in the list by using the len function, and it wants to know what do we want the length of, and we want the length of grades. So we will put that in there. At any time while you're writing the program, you can click on any of the variables and see where they're used and where they're defined. So by clicking on grades, we can see it was defined here and used there. Grade, on the other hand, is what's used here inside the loop, and I is used inside of this loop. So when we run the program now, our output will be a little friendlier. 1 through 5. So there you have it. Given a list like this. Now, the list doesn't have to be numbers. It could be strings. It could be things that are more complicated. But whatever that list is, by using a for statement that looks like this, we're guaranteed to start at the beginning of the list and hit every item to the end. That's the easiest, most elegant way of doing it. If for some reason we have to know the index, then we can write the list this way. So for I as an index in range, and then length of grades will have the same effect. It'll start at 0 and it'll end in 1 less than the length, in this case 0 to 4. Now we can use that value of I here, and if we use the value of I here to point to the grades list, it's referred to as the index, and that would be index I in the list grades. So here's 2 ways of doing it. The best advice is keep it simple. If you can get away with doing this, it's preferred. If you need something fancier, you can use this. You may learn at some point in the future that you can even get an index out of using a for loop written like this, but that will be a lecture for another day. So hopefully that clears up the 2 ways of using the for statements to loop through lists. Thank you very much.